Welcome to Waterside Chat. Tom Sadler talks with guests who depend on healthy oceans and fisheries for their recreation and livelihoods. And now, let's get started.
All right. Well, welcome to this afternoon's Waterside Chat. For the next few months, we're going to be chatting with Marine Fish Conservation Network members, new and old, to hear about their stories, about what the Magnuson Stevens Act and the network means to them. My guest today is Theresa Labriola. Theresa is the president of Wild Oceans and a member of our policy council. From her early days fishing for striped bass and tuna from her family boat, she has thought about the future of fishing. She is advocating for smart, conservation-minded commercial and recreational fishing regulations. I'm excited she could join us. We'll be learning about Theresa, Wild Oceans, and her experience with the Marine Fish Conservation Network and what the Magnuson Stevens Act means to her. Welcome, Theresa.
Thank you, Tom. It's great to be here talking with you, since Wild Oceans has been here since the beginning, not only of Magnuson, but of the Marine Fish Conservation Network.
Yeah, you guys are OG. So it's delighted to have you. So I want to do a little bit of background here about who you are, right? So where are you from? Where were you born, raised? Where'd you go to school? Stuff like that.
Lovely. I am a New Yorker, born and raised in the Mid-Hudson Valley, on the third bridge up the Hudson River, the Mid-Hudson Bridge. And even though that's where I was raised, from a young age, I spent my summers on the ocean in New Jersey and then in Rhode Island, where my family had a house, and my two teacher parents scrimped and saved and bought a little house near the water and bought a boat. And we spent a lot of our summer days on the water. I think the first time I ate shellfish, I was 6 months old, and my doctor said, "What are you doing?" So I guess I had a taste for the ocean from a young age.
Whereabouts in Rhode Island?
Oh, yes. So my family we camped at Burlingame State Park in Charlestown, Rhode Island for years of my childhood, and then had a house in the same town, and spent our summers in Charlestown. And our boat was either in Charlestown or Snug Harbor in North Kingston. And since then, as we've grown up, 3 of my siblings live in Westerly, Rhode Island.
Uh-huh.
And so the ocean definitely called to us. And as much as I love the Hudson River and I call that home, that's my freshwater home, and Rhode Island is my saltwater home.
Well, when I was growing up, my family had a place in Kingston, Rhode Island, in Exeter, right on the border. So I know that area really well. It's lovely, and so I love to have the connection there. So, how about school?
So I went to Highland High School and graduated, and knew from a young age that I wanted to work in marine policy. And I think it's because when I was young, my father had saltwater sportsmen in the house, and I used to read Saltwater Sportsman, and oddly, the conservation articles by the former president of Wild Oceans, Ken Hinman. And I think he was probably my inspiration for wanting to become someone who worked in marine fish conservation. Specifically, at that age, I worked on a boat with my brother, a small commercial boat, and also we did a lot of recreational fishing. I just had a lot of questions like, who owns the ocean? Who owns these fish? What do you mean the outside 200 miles, it's still a kind of a free-for-all at that time? So I graduated from Cornell University and worked for a few years on doing as an educator and also with the Hudson River Keeper in environmental conservation, and found my way back to law school in the late 90s. I studied at Vermont Law School, and then from there have a series of work both as an environmental litigator and in advocacy, and eventually decided I wanted to work in fisheries full time and fisheries conservation. And I was lucky enough to have an opportunity to start working with Wild Oceans about 13 years ago, and accepted the job as the president of Wild Oceans, and only the third president of Wild Oceans. And I accepted it this year. So we've had only 3 presidents in our 53-year history. 54-year
Wow.
history. Yeah.
53 years.
Yeah.
Impressive. So let's talk a little bit about Wild Oceans. Give me the
Sure.
mission, history, goals of Wild Oceans.
Sure. Yes. From the beginning, Wild Oceans came together, founded by recreational fishermen in the Atlantic, who saw a change in highly migratory species, their size and their presence in Atlantic waters. And they heard about this federal law that was being negotiated, the Magnuson Stevens Act, not that at the time. And they said, we want to get involved in this. We want to make sure that our oceans are protected, not just from federal fleet or foreign fleets, which was sort of the impetus of Magnuson way back 50 years ago, was to stretch our borders out to 200 miles. We don't want to just remove foreign fleets, but we want to ensure that our domestic fleets don't just take the role of foreign fleets and overfish the resource.
Right.
We want to make sure recreational fishermen and conservation has a role at the table. It has a voice at the table. So 2 avid recreational fishermen started Wild Oceans in order to engage in the negotiations for Magnuson. So that's why we are 53 years old.
Right.
I think we from the beginning, we tried to bring together diverse interests, so conservation and fishermen. Wild Oceans is odd. We are a conservation organization, but we are founded by recreational fishermen who really respect that the ocean belongs to all of us, and we have a responsibility with every step we take out on the water and how we engage with the water to treat it with respect and for the future generations, basically. So we, from the beginning, we brought together diverse interests to focus on marine fish conservation, and always saw this as a challenge of making sure that any of the progress we made in the past was not lost in the future.
Great. There's obviously a big overlap, and it's no wonder that Ken Hinman was one of the original founders of the Marine Fish Conservation Network. So let's talk about Magnuson, right?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned it. Its 50th anniversary. So why do you think Magnuson is one of the most important marine resource laws that's been ever put in place?
Sure. I think it's not that. I think it's the iterations of Magnuson that have made it so powerful. So it's not standing still. It ended international fishing in domestic waters, but it required us to take responsibility for the fish in our waters and the way we fish them. Then we were seeing stocks were still overfished, and councils were struggling with, how do we define this? How do we deal with this? And so it took another step and said, okay, we're going to help you out with this. So Magnuson hasn't stood still, and I think that is a very strong component of it. We still think that Magnuson can transition to more holistic fisheries management that continues to protect the entire marine ecosystem and incorporate stronger fish habitat protections and stronger forage fish management. And that's where we see Magnuson can still go in the future. I think the other really strong thing about Magnuson is it gave us a starting point on conservation standards. And it doesn't allow the United States to backslide, even if other countries are backsliding. And the work we do, just a little bit more about wild oceans, we tend to work on domestic fisheries policy at the councils and on international highly migratory species at the international regional fishery management organizations. And at the councils, we'll often hear about, well, other countries don't have to do this. They're not using circle hooks. They're not protecting sea turtles. They're not, they're selling their marlins and we can't. And Magnuson doesn't let us backslide on that. There's not a provision that says, well, if Mexico's doing it, we can do it. Or if Thailand's doing it, we can do it.
Got it.
It says, this is our standard and other people better step up to our standard, a higher standard for the ecosystem, a higher standard for fishermen, a higher standard for society, and I think a higher standard for the ocean.
I mean, I think that's wonderful. And to me, it's at the risk of being overly jingoistic on this, it's we have the ability to lead the way as a country, as a player in the international conversation on marine resources and other resources. And it is important that we do that we lead the way, and that we don't say, well, those other guys are doing it, so we should be able to do it. And I think that's a great point that you make about why Magnuson is as important as it was or is, and how it went from being, hey, we're going to kick these guys out of our waters and define what our waters are, to we're not only going to do that, but we're going to lead the way and say this is the right way to do it, and not do it by edict, but by doing it by science, and having the science and data to back it up. Is that fair assessment?
Yes, that is totally a fair assessment, especially if you just stick in the science part of it. We're going to use best available science to manage our fisheries. And a lot of the work I do is you set a catch limit, but now how does the fishery achieve that catch limit? How do they not also catch endangered species or non-target species? And so there's a lot of I see also a lot of our gear modifications that we use that are eventually adopted internationally. But a lot of the gear modifications and a lot of the experimentation does start here. And it's because we are trying to achieve the goals and the balancing of Magnuson and find better ways to fish so that we are within the boundaries of Magnuson. So it's not just that we exported our science and our way of managing, but also our innovation.
That's again, I get at the risk of being jingoistic here, but that's one of our hallmarks as a country, is being innovators, being entrepreneurial, and when we can export that knowledge and those innovations into the service of better fishing, better fish, better fisheries, better habitat for fish, I think we can be justifiably proud. So I'm very interested. You Wild Oceans has a unique perspective and represents a constituency that near and dear to my heart as a recreational angler. But how do you see in your conversations with recreational anglers, and you've brought us through, how do you got to where you are? How do you think they see Magnuson? How do when you're talking to recreational anglers, how do they see Magnuson?
Yeah. Hopefully they don't see Magnuson because it's working so well.
Yeah, that's
that would be
point.
the true, goalpost, I think, because I think for recreational fishermen, a lot of times your interaction with Magnuson is only when something is bad,
Mhm.
and that unfortunately then um, can prompt a reaction. Uh, uh, and I like the opportunities. So we'll take striped bass for instance. When I
Mhm.
was young, actually was when striped bass fishing was closed, and I didn't fish for striped bass when I was young because they were overfished, and
Mhm.
the fishery was closed. And when I could start fishing for striped bass was also when I learned, oh, this is an amazing resource, and I understood at that point, at a very young age, we basically haven't been able to fish it because it was overfished. Now we have this opportunity, and we have with that opportunity a responsibility.
Mhm.
And a lot of our recreational fishing partners, I think, see this, that when something is depleted, we are part of the solution to bring it back. I say striped bass because it's such an amazing story of really recreational fishermen often saying, "Put some limits on this. We want this to come back." And
Mhm.
the only other place that I've seen this maybe is when our constituents are also big game fishermen, and
Mhm.
they are they fish for marlins, and that is another group where that started with, we don't want people to take these fish, we want to leave them in the water for future fishing opportunities, we want to let the populations grow. We want to use better gear recreationally, like circle hooks, to ensure
Mhm.
their survivability. We want to make sure we use uh, measures of good post release or measures, good release measures, so that they
Right.
survive and there's low post release mortality. Um, so there are many groups of recreational fishermen who uh, see Magnuson, I think, as really a good law that allows us to take the foot off when there is a problem and to ensure those opportunities are there in the future. But unfortunately, Tom, I think a lot of times we only come into contact with Magnuson when there's something wrong, or
Mhm.
something that's hindering um, opportunities. And when that happens, there's a lot of tension between I think, between recreational or commercial fishermen and those who are managing our fisheries. So, um, yeah.
Well, no, I mean it's logical. Of course, when you start telling people how to do something or that they can't do something, um, it human nature is to chafe against that
Yeah.
restriction. And yet, um, I think we have seen the success of Magnuson. I think striped bass was a good example. The
Mhm.
recreational community said we need to address this. Um, I don't think you're ever going to get unanimity with people who say, well, this is the right way and it's the only right way to do the thing the right way.
Mhm.
We're going to have that challenge regardless. And I think the the value, if you will, of organizations like Wild Oceans and coalitions like the Marine Fish Conservation Network is to be able to get people in a room to say, well, let's see if we can get enough of the way there that we start doing the right thing. But if we didn't have a framework to operate under the Magnuson Act, then we wouldn't be able to say, well, here's a baseline to operate from. Is that
True. No,
consistent?
your baseline, I would say, is also transparency. This is
Mm-hmm.
how the process works. And
Mm-hmm.
you might not like the outcome, but it's going to be, there's a stock assessment. We work off the stock assessment. We make adjustments because of it. And not and we balance social and economic uh, decisions in the council. And that is having that transparency and that process. I think even if you don't like that process and where it ends up, you see, okay, this is the process. We're not making this up ad hoc as we go along.
Right. Got it. That makes perfect sense. I'm cognizant of your time. Are you still good for 5 minutes?
Oh, I'm good. Oh, I'm good for
Oh.
another hour, actually.
Okay.
It was 1
Oh,
o'clock.
I'm sorry. I'm sitting here panicking like, oh shoot, I got. All right.
I got an hour.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent. So you've been with Wild Oceans, did you say 15 years, 13 years?
2013. So 13 years.
13 years.
Yeah.
Right. So, and you came up through the ranks, if you will. You've been involved with the network, I assume, through that whole period of time?
Yeah, pretty much.
Was there a time when you said, wow, I'm really glad that we're part of the network and it's really captures what the work that we want to do?
I'm going to sidestep your question a tiny bit. I'm going to go back a long way.
Okay. No, it's fine.
No, because it answers it eventually. To before I started at Wild Oceans, when Wild Oceans was in the 90s, was called the National Coalition for Marine Conservation. And when we saw this need and an opportunity to bring together diverse organizations that had a common interest, and together with Audubon Society, WWF, Greenpeace, the Center for Marine Conservation, founded the network. So this creation, this unprecedented alliance of fishing and conservation organizations that came together and were dedicated to strengthening the management of marine fisheries. It's that impetus, that decision. How many years ago was that? 30 years, 30 years ago?
Something like that, yeah.
That's still the moment. That has just been echoed so many times. I was every time we get together.
How do you mean it's been echoed?
Sure. In this group. So every time we get together and we have recreational, commercial, conservation organizations agreeing on something, it's really that decision to create the network. It's validated over and over. And I think that just the continued work by the coalition, nothing was coming to mind except for the fact that we continue to work together. That's what kept coming to my mind, that this decision to bring together diverse interests is still such a strong, such a strong path forward. That's still, I think, quite unique and necessary for for so much of what we do, and so much of taking a broader perspective on marine conservation and understanding different needs of different user groups, and then seeing where we have common ground. So just going back all the way, that the creation of the reason the network was created still continues to be echoed in all the work that we do today.
I think when people ask me, so what's the Marine Fish Conservation Network? And I said, well, it pretty much defines itself by its title. We work in the oceans. We work with fish. We work to conserve the oceans, the habitat, the fish. But here's the value proposition. And disagree with me if this didn't get it, but it's a network. It's taking scientists and conservationists and small boat commercial fishermen and recreational anglers and bringing them together in a network. And a network is different than a coalition. And I use the word coalition because most people see a coalition, but it's the network part of it is it's the conversations. And so validate this for me, Theresa. It's the conversations that I hear at the policy council where someone says, well, we're working on this, and someone else says, well, call Charlie in my office or Jake in my office, and they can help you with that. It's the coalition sort of sounds like, hey, we're aligned in a policy place. The network says we're going to help each other.
True.
And is that what you were getting at?
Yes, I think both of those are true, actually.
Okay.
But I like your take on it. And something that's really valuable to me is Wild Oceans is very tiny.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'll hear about something, another group working on a forage fish issue, and I'll go, oh, that sounds like something I'm working on in the Pacific. And I don't have staff to track every fishery management council. And so we can also, the network and the networking part, we really do learn from each other and can build on each other's successes. So if something works with unmanaged forage in the Pacific, it could work on unmanaged forage in the Atlantic. And you are getting the experiences from each other, and sharing those experiences. And instead of having pointy elbows and saying like, no, you can't work on that. We work on that. You don't work on that. The network is very open and sharing and generous with each other's time and trying to reach that common goal.
They're very
marine fish
networky.
conservation. Yeah.
The network is very networky, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it is my view that the ability to make progress on policy comes from cooperation as opposed to confrontation, and having an organization like the network that lets individual organizations come together, in a roundtable setting, if you will, and have that networking opportunity, and then move on to a common policy posture, supportive of the marine of Magnuson Stevens as a maybe elements of it, sections and titles that would say, hey, this could be better, this could be worse, should do this, we should do that. Having that platform, if you will. Go ahead.
No. It's I think that platform, that's a nice way to put it, that there's this platform for discussion and for I can't think of a moment where I've had like true disagreement with somebody on something they're working on. But if I did, it's also collegial enough of an organization that I could say, hey, that really doesn't work. That really concerns me. And I think the other organizations, if they would listen, or I would listen if someone said, Theresa, I'm really concerned with Wild Oceans wanting to, I don't know, ban all fishing everywhere in the ocean. Like, imagine that was the topic. Right. Somebody mentioned it. I have concerns about that. Let's talk about it. That is not Wild Ocean's stance.
No, I get it. But I think you raise an important point about the network, is it has that collegial vibe to it. Sure. And as you point out, when there are disagreements, differences of opinion, and it's in the 9 years I've been involved, I've never seen any hostility. Sure. And it's, we operate with guidance so that, we can address challenges like that.
So the network also really demonstrates how there are so many different ways to engage in marine fish conservation. You can engage as a fisherman. You can engage as a conservation organization. You can engage as a scientific organization. You can engage as a fishmonger. And there is room for all of us and a need for all of us to participate in the fisheries management process and the evolution of marine fish conservation. And that's another thing to look at when you look at the network, is how we each have unique and different roles and different voices.
There's always a challenge in having people who don't do this for a living understand the work we do, the work you do. Is there a way that you can think of that would help people understand why healthy fisheries matter, not just for the fish, but for all of us?
Yeah. When I am challenged with this, I often make a terrestrial comparison because we can see on land. And in some ways, healthy fisheries are like healthy logging. We can see logging. We can see when there's a clear cut. We can see how it impacts a habitat, and we can see how it might impact the rest of everything from stormwater to endangered species to fishing opportunities. And so I often can compare healthy fisheries to healthy natural resource management and use terrestrially. And healthy fisheries they don't exist in isolation. It's part of a larger ecosystem. And like other natural resource users, fishermen were given an opportunity to take our rod and reel and our inspiration and our hopes and dreams to the ocean. And we might be searching as recreational fishermen for adventure and of stories, and maybe to catch a few fish to share with families and friends. But just like a terrestrial, the use of natural resources on land, whether it's logging or even something much more, which you could consider much less invasive, like hiking. When you hike, you disturb the ecosystem.
Sure.
You carry seeds on your shoes and bring new plants in, and you disturb whatever's in wherever you're hiking. You disturb the ecosystem, and the same is true when we go out on the water. Our actions impact this common resource, and I like to share that. And we have this responsibility to ensure we treat that resource with respect, as we want other people to treat it and leave it for us. And it's not ours to own, it's ours to be stewards of for future generations. It's ours to use, but lightly, carefully, so that our children and our children's children have the same opportunity. On the other hand, there's another part of this question that I think, like, why do healthy fisheries matter? I also am a firm believer in the philosophy that humans, if we separate humans from nature, they won't understand and know how to protect it. We need to have an opportunity to see nature and touch nature and breathe nature. And so healthy fisheries are important because they give us that opportunity to go and explore the ocean and see what's there, and choose to treat it with respect, as opposed to just being told, this is important, don't touch it. In your career, you've probably met more people than you can count who choose a career in ocean conservation or as an ocean scientist because something happened when they were young. They went fishing. They went on a boat. They saw the ocean. They interacted with the ocean, and they have this early experience, and it molds us. I mean, molded me. It's the first thing you ask, like, when did you start fishing? So healthy fisheries and good fisheries policy gives us this opportunity to interact with our oceans. And that is then, I think, turns back and gives us the chance and the desire to protect the ocean. So healthy fisheries matter because only by having that opportunity to fish do we then turn back and protect the resource.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think that is, as a fishing guide myself, I'm using the resource, and yet with my clients or my students, I explain to them that you have to be stewards, and you use that word. And but what struck me about what you just said was hiking. So we don't hike on the oceans, but we scuba dive, we sail, powerboat, we go out and whale watch or bird watch in the oceans. And so it's not that resource, and I think you made a great point, is that if to know where something comes from, so you build a respect, a sense of stewardship, to make sure it's still there, whether it's watching whales breach or scuba diving in the in the Caribbean or off the coast of New Hampshire. It's I've met my first monkfish face to face in the ocean off of Rye Beach, and I think that's a great explanation of why our oceans matter beyond just the exploitation side of it. Thank you for that. We're coming up on next week. This is the taping. We're taping this or recording this. It will be the 50th anniversary of the signing of the Magnuson Stevens Act. Is there a message that you would like to leave with our listeners about as we celebrate those anniversaries? Something you'd say, hey, think about this.
Yeah. I mean, just that no matter what your interaction is with the ocean, it belongs to you. It belongs to all of us. And Magnuson and better marine fisheries conservation is just one part of this larger fabric, larger puzzle that protects all marine creatures, marine habitat, and human opportunities of recreation or profit or inspiration. If you pull on any of those strings too hard, they'll run. It'll run. As a sweater would run. So, this ocean, on the advent, as we come up on the anniversary of Magnuson, it's just a part of the puzzle of marine conservation. Again, I don't think you can lock away the ocean, but you can overexploit it. And so this is Magnuson just provides us with an opportunity. It's an opportunity to continue to consider these trade-offs between social and economic and ecological factors, and to give people an opportunity to take care of the ocean for not just for Magnuson specifically for fisheries, but it's part of that greater fabric of ocean conservation. So, yeah, I'd just like everyone to, whether you're a fisherman or not, Magnuson's a really important part of ensuring the ocean, is vibrant for all of us, for no matter what our economic or recreational or inspirational need is. So that balancing that's the balancing act between Magnuson. Just one of the Magnuson's full of the balancing act, and Magnuson itself is just part of a balancing act of different users of the ocean.
That's a great way to put it. Magnuson is a balancing act. I love that. Are you an optimist about the future? You're a fisherman. You have to be, right?
I am an optimist about the future. Part of my early experiences, I taught first grade, and
really?
At 6 years old, they are all wearing white hats. They all want to do good, and I've never met a 6-year-old who said, "Nah, let's pollute the ocean. Let's fish all the fish." And so we all start with that in us, and so I think that makes me an optimist, that most of us don't lose that desire to leave this world a better place than we found it.
Awesome. I think we should all adopt that the 6-year-old mentality you just described, Theresa. I think that's wonderful. Thank you. We're gonna start wrapping up. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your perspective and experience, knowledge, especially having been an integral part of the network. Is there anything you'd like to wrap up with? Last thoughts?
I think so long as, there are fish in the sea, there's a place for the Marine Fish Conservation Network to bring people together, to make sure we work together for the future of fishing.
That's terrific. That's terrific. All right. Well, thank you again. Our next Waterside chat is in the works, and you'll be able to see that through email and social media channels. And until then, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Theresa.
If you enjoyed this episode of Waterside Chat, share it with your friends and colleagues. You can check us out on YouTube or most podcast services. To stay up to date on Waterside Chats and the Marine Fish Conservation Network, sign up for emails at conservefish.org. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you at the next Waterside Chat.